All right, you feather merchants. This story is about when I was a structural iron worker, and I spent 25 years as a structural iron worker. And what happened, I never wanted to be an iron worker. My dad was an iron worker. And anyway, make a long story short, I got out of the Marine Corps in 64, and my dad asked me, he says, what are you going to do? I said, well, I want to go down to New Orleans and ship out as a merchant seaman. And he thought that was a stupid idea. And he said, he told me, he says, let me get you on as an iron worker. And he said, then you complete the apprentice program and become an iron worker. And then you do something different if you want, but you have that to fall back on. So I reluctantly followed his advice. And, it took me, actually, it was a month later, I was on a job. And it was funny because it was in the steel mill. That's where I worked out at a local 395 in Hammond, Indiana. And our jurisdiction had all the steel mills along the Lake Michigan in Indiana. And anyway, that was my first job, and I thought, well, I wasn't really keen about walking iron and all that, but this foreman came up to me early in the morning, right before we started work, and he asked me if I was afraid of heights. And having just got out of the Marine Corps, I told him I wasn't afraid of anything, and which wasn't true because my knees were shaking. Anyway, I went up there. I did what they told me to do, and I never made apprentice wages. I made iron worker wages from day one because at that time, that was the biggest boom period in local 395's history. They were revamping all the steel mills and even building new ones. It was incredible. There was so much work, overtime. It was wow, what an opportunity! And there were times. Well, actually, I think we had about 1,200 members in our local, and there were times where we'd have 5 to maybe 6,000 iron workers from all over the country working in our jurisdiction because there was so much work there. Um, anyway, this story is going to be about some of my experiences, and I had so many of them. And I had so many close calls. I don't even like to think about some of these, but I'll give you one I just thought about is my partner, Freddie Maurer, who had passed away recently in a motorcycle accident. I had worked with him for on and off for 15 years as an iron worker out of 395, and we even took trips together down in Mexico. But anyway, Freddie and we were working on what they call electric furnace, and it was a high building. And what the difference is of working in these steel mills on the buildings, it's not like working on high rises. You could be on a 1,000-foot high rise, and what happens is every other floor is decked. They deck them. They lay decking down or planks. So if you were to fall, basically you're going to fall 2 floors, depending on how high the floor is at that time, and unless you're unlucky enough to fall through an elevator shaft or outside connection. Anyway, we're working on this electric furnace, and I think I'm pretty certain it was over 100 feet to the bottom chord of the truss. and that's where we were at. And we looked over to our left, and I saw another iron worker. I can't remember his name. He was a very good iron worker, though. And back then, we seldom tied off. It was, you just didn't do it. And this guy, he was tied off, except he forgot he was tied off. And what caught my eye is, that's what caught my eye. He got up from the point he was working on. He was carrying a bag of bolts, and he started walking to the next point. And what he was walking on is two angle irons together, and they'd have a spacer in between the angle iron. So when you walk across it, you couldn't lift your foot up; you'd lose your balance. You had to shuffle across like that. And mind you, like I said, we had to be at least 100 feet to the ground. And when you're on those bottom cord trusses, there's only fear and atmosphere between you and the ground. Anyway, this guy happened to be walking across angle iron. It was back to back, and he's shuffling like this. And mind you, his feet, the angle iron is much more narrow than his feet. So that dinging you hear is people sending me messages. Anyway, try to ignore that. Anyway, as he's shuffling on across this angle iron to get to the next point, we saw he was tied off. And I thought, oh, this is going to be real ugly. And fortunately, he was walking slow enough that when he came to the end of his rope, because the belt we would wear back then had a tie-off line, and he came to the end of it and realized that he wasn't going anyplace because he was still tied off. And what he had to do, he couldn't turn around. He couldn't set his bolts down. It's just he's standing on the angle iron. So he had to start walking backwards. If you can imagine, it's bad enough walking forward, but walking backwards, I thought, oh, he's not going to make it. And he shuffled backwards real slow, and he made it. He made it back to the point and untied his tie-off line and stuffed it in his bolt bag and started off on this journey again, walking the angle iron back to his point. And, I've got so many stories like that. I'll tell you another one comes to mind. Is we were working on this job, and the older iron workers back then, this was a tough breed. A large percentage of these guys had been World War II veterans. I mean, they had saw some real serious combat, and they were tough people. Anyway, one of these older iron workers, his scaffold gave way that he's working on, and I don't know how it happened. Fortunately, he wasn't too high up. I think he fell about 35, 40 feet, and when he hit the ground, he broke his leg, and he broke his femur. And the reason I knew that is he was wearing coveralls, and I could see, I mean, it was a clean break because his bone, femur bone, was pushed up against his coveralls. And we had already called for an ambulance, and I remember telling him, I said, try to relax. I said, the ambulance is on his way. And he told me, he says, fuck the ambulance. He says, call my attorney. And this man is laying on the ground with a broken leg, and he's making jokes about calling his attorney. You know, it's oh my gosh, I can't believe it. And another one that comes to mind is Freddie and I. We were working on what they call a BOF. It's a basic oxygen furnace, big building, and they produce a lot of iron. There's two big vessels that they produce. Like I said, they produce a lot of iron, and we were working on this building as it's going up, and we were probably around. We were probably about 180 feet in the air, and it was where there's nothing but fear and atmosphere between the ground and us, and we were had been bolting up, and we were following the connectors. So the connectors, they they're connecting these beams, and they put a couple bolts in either side and snug them up, and we would follow them up and bolt them up. We had an impact machine that we would tighten bolts with. Anyway, we had just bolted this one beam, and we had to walk across. I think it was either a 6-inch or 8-inch beam. It could have been an 8-inch beam. But we were. As I started to walk across it, I had to take and carry a keg of bolts, and I didn't carry a whole keg because it was way too heavy. But I had about a half a keg of bolts on my shoulder, which was heavy, and I had to walk this beam from point A to point B, and there was a platform there, and we could put the bolts on the platform. Well, anyway, I started walking across the beam, and the connectors, evidently, they didn't really snug the bolts up too much because they're moving so fast. I get about maybe a third of the way out on the beam, maybe not quite that much, and the beam started going like this. Now, I got a choice. I can't drop this keg of bolts. There's people working on the ground underneath me, and I drop those bolts, it's going to kill someone. And if I don't think of something really quick, I'm going to be falling with the keg of bolts. And anyway, what I did is I started walking quicker to break the momentum of that beam going back and forth, and that's what I did. And my heart is like whoa, pounding, and I as I walked faster, it broke that momentum, and I was able to go to the other side, and I told Freddie, I said, tighten the bolts on your side, and I'll tighten them on this side, and that's what we did. And there were so many close calls like that. And basically, the iron that we'd walk on, if you were lucky, you'd be on maybe on the top chord of a truss. That means it's going up like this. And generally, on the side of steel mills, it was usually about a 5/12 pitch, sometimes 6/12 pitch, which was very steep. And if you can imagine walking up a truss, mind you, there's nothing on either side. It's just fear and atmosphere between you and the ground. And these mill buildings, I mean, they could be anywhere from maybe 80 feet high to 200 feet high. It depends on what kind of building it is. And it was much more difficult than working on a high rise because, like I said, the high rises, every other floor was decked. So anyway, if you can imagine walking uphill up to Struss, and then you have to step over the apex, and now you're walking down. And it always took my breath away when I would be doing this, when I'd step over the apex and then walk downhill. Because, I mean, it's so easy to slip and fall, and it was like that all day long, unless you got on a job where you're moving machinery on the ground or something like that. But most of the time, we were up in the air with working up there, and it was really dangerous. And you had the beams you walked were anywhere from 8 inches, 6 inches, sometimes 4 inches, and sometimes you'd walk across angle iron back to back, and your feet would be, your boots would be hanging over the side, and of course you'd have to shuffle, and you weren't tied off. Like today, iron work is a lot different today. They have harnesses where if you were, and you're going to be tied off. They have cables everywhere. They got cables where you can walk across the beam. You're going to be tied off, and you'll be working out of a basket. Usually, there's a lot of safety precautions they have today that they didn't have back when I was an iron worker. In fact, and this is no insult to the iron workers today, but they've got girls that are doing it today, and they certainly didn't have women iron workers when I was doing this, because it was really dangerous, and it was a lot different. And I give the iron workers a lot of credit today. I think they're basically smarter. Their apprentice program today, they learn a lot more than they did back when I was doing it. And they even have schools on how to be a foreman. It's really good schools that they attend, and their welding classes, they learn everything, and I give them a lot of credit for that, and good for them. And I'm going to tell you one more story. I was inside what they call a stack, and it's they had these stainless steel baffles near the top of the stack that had needed to be re-welded. So anyway, I don't know what happened to Freddie at this time, but I had to work with this other guy that I didn't know who he was, and he seemed to be real nervous, and I don't know if he was nervous because I was an asshole, or he was nervous because of what we're going to do. But anyway, what they did, we had a small, I wouldn't call it a cage. It was angle iron. It was had a floor. It was very small, and 2 people could just fit in there. And we had our welding lead tied to the rail. It was angle iron, and they had the operating engineer. He was operating in a tugger, and he was going to take us up in this small cage. And the foreman, he told us, and he was right for mentioning this, the cable was only a 1/4-inch cable. So you didn't want to hit that with your stinger. That's what holds your welding rod. because chances are it would break it, and that'd be the end of you. So anyway, I already knew this. It's real obvious. So it was. I thought I would start welding first. So we had the operator take us up to the elevation where the baffles were. So uh, my partner, he's in the cage with me. It's a very, very small. And he's like the fire watch. I mean, watching to make sure I don't catch on fire or whatever from the sparks. So I'm welding, and I welded for about 2 hours, and then it was his turn. And that guy, I, I moved to the side so he could move where up front where the baffle was, and he stuck his welding rod in that stinger. And this idiot, I don't know what he was thinking about, but the end of that welding rod hit the 1/4 inch cable, and there was only these cables are braided, right? When he hit it, two of them broke, snapped like that. We have one small cable holding us, and I grabbed the stinger. I took it out of his hand. I took uh, the welding rod out of it, and he said, "What are we gonna do?" And I said, "I don't know what you're gonna do, but I'm getting the fuck out of here." So I yelled up to the guys on the roof up on top to drop down a hand line so I could climb out of there, and they did. And as I grabbed the hand line, I don't think I had to climb very far. I might have. We were pretty close to the top, maybe 12, 15 feet. And he told me, he says, I don't think I can do that. And I told him I don't care what you do. And I climbed up out of there and called down on the radio to the foreman down there what happened. And I told him just have the guy operating the tugger lower that cage as slow as he can and as careful because of what happened. And he did, and the cable never parted any more than that. I don't know what happened to the guy. I was done with him. I told the foreman I'm not working with this guy anymore. So that's basically all I remember of that. Anyway, there was so many other incidents that happened. I don't even like to think about them. But anyway, I worked there for the first 15 years. Other than a small stint in New York City, I went there with Freddie and a couple of buddies of ours. And anyway, we just stayed there a short time. And they had beer breaks. Beer breaks for the iron workers in New York City back then, and we were working on a telephone building right off of Wall Street, and we were working for American Bridge, and this is when the Trade Center was being built, and we were able to have a can of beer in the morning and a can of beer in the afternoon for a beer break. And those guys told me, they said, if you go down to the Trade Center and work, they'll let you take a 6-pack up in the morning and a 6-pack up in the afternoon. Anyway, I'm sure they don't do that anymore. Those days are long gone. Anyway, I spent 15 years there until the bottom fell out of the steel industry. And, a lot of people just didn't see this. I knew the party was over. It was never going to be the same, and I never particularly liked being in those steel mills in the first place. Besides being dangerous, it had all the toxic air you were breathing. And anyway, I had an opportunity to move to Las Vegas, and I transferred into local 433, which had the test site in their jurisdiction. It was out of Los Angeles, but Las Vegas was in their jurisdiction. And after I got a security clearance, I was able to go to the Nevada test site and actually work in Area 51. And I can't really elaborate on that particular job, but it was a dream job for iron workers. I'd never seen anything like this. Clean. They what really stood out in my mind is the perks. At the chow hall, they charge us $1 a meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they you always had a choice of 3 entrees, and Wednesday night was steak night, and Thursday night was prime rib night, and it was that way for 10 years. And for $1, you could eat as many steaks as you wanted and as many prime ribs as you wanted. Breakfast was they'd cook anything you wanted. Your eggs any way you wanted it, pancakes, French toast, bacon, sausage. It was incredible. And then they had a workout gym, the best you can imagine. And so I was always into working out. And I had housing there. And at first we stayed in trailers, but then we built housing, and they charged us $7.25 a week for a furnished room with a TV with a lot of channels on it, and with maid service. I just couldn't even believe it, and I tried telling some of the guys that I worked with back in 395, where I was and what I was doing, and I thought maybe they could do this, and no one seemed to be interested in it, and I certainly had no interest in going back, although I certainly had a lot of friends back there, and but what an incredible 10 years that was. And to top it off is they had a lot of pilots out there, and I got to know a lot of them, and I would ask them if they would take me up. And some of these guys, after you had a few beers, oh, sure, Jim, we'll take you up. Well, the base commander, they're not going to let their pilots take me up. But after the 10 years, I ended up applying for the Department of Corrections, and my department manager found out that I was going to be leaving soon, and I had bugged these guys for about 8 of the 10 years to take me up. Everyone knew I tried to get on one of these jets, and as a going away present, they had a test pilot take me up in a T-38 trainer jet, and this is like an experience I'll never forget. The day before, I had to attend egress school, so I knew how to eject and get my flight suit, and they explained everything to me. And the next morning, while I'm on the clock, as an iron worker, I'm getting into a T-38 jet with one of the best pilots on this planet. He had been a pilot in Vietnam, and had saw a lot of action, and now he's a test pilot. They get the astronauts from these people. Anyway, that flight was just an unbelievable experience. When actually he told me, he said, he was real serious. He said, if we have a problem up there, I can't eject until you eject. And I told him, I said, that's the least of your problems. I would eject just for the experience. And I would. I knew exactly what to do, and that would be no problem. I would eject out of that plane. So he looked at me like I probably had a few screws loose, and so we get in the cockpit, and they give us a go ahead. And when he took off from that runway, I mean, it's a short takeoff. I don't. It's like seconds. You're going straight up in the air like a rocket ship, and what it feels like is. It felt like I weighed about 400 pounds. I'm sucked back into that seat. And at first I thought, oh, it kind of scared me. And we went straight up and then came over upside down and back down. And he started showing me what it was like to roll it, to fly under radar and all this stuff. He just told me, he said, if you start getting sick, tell me and I'll slow down because if you puke in a mask, it's over with. So I said, okay. And sure enough, I actually did. I started feeling a little sick, and I told him. He slowed down. And so we're bullshitting, and he told me, he said, do you fly? And I kind of fibbed. I said I fly all the time. The only thing I ever did, I didn't know how to fly a plane, and I knew that I used to go up with this teacher that worked with my wife that I was married to at the time, and he had a Piper Cub, and unbeknownst to us, he was going blind, and he would take us up, he would take off, and then he'd give me the controls. And the reason he gave me the controls is he was going blind, and he couldn't see too good. And what ended our flight, well, anyway, I would steer the Piper Cub in the air, and one thing I noticed is there was a gauge there right in front of me, and it showed you whether you're going up, down, sideways, and all you do is hold on to the steering and go straight. Well, anyway, I couldn't help notice out of all the gauges on this T-38 jet, there was that gauge on there. Anyway, he told me, he asked me, he said, do you fly? And I said, yes, I do. And the only thing I ever did was take the controls on this Piper Cub. Anyway, he said, take the controls. And so I took the stick and I watched, I kept my eye on that gauge, so I knew I was going straight. And he told me, he says, roll it. And I thought, oh. I said, how do you do that? He says, you take the stick to the left or the right, and you're going to feel it come back around. And as soon as it straightens out, you take it and fly straight. So I did that, and I thought, wow, that's pretty incredible. And then he told me, he says, push the throttle in. So I pushed it in. He says, no, all the way in. And he got the throttle right on the side here. I got my hand on the stick. So I pushed that throttle all the way in. I hear the afterburners kicking in, and I'm sucked back into my seat. And I thought, whew. I thought to myself, if I hadn't been such an idiot in school, I could have been a fighter pilot. It's what an experience. And then he told me, he says, roll it. And we're doing Mach 1. And I thought, shit. He said, just do the same thing you did last time, except it's going to be quicker. I took that stick, and all I did was go boom, boom, like that. And that plane, that jet just rolled right over, just as smooth as anything. And when he took it straight up in the air, it kind of scared me. But by this time, when I'm controlling it, I mean, adrenaline is, it was just unbelievable. And I asked him, I said, can I take it straight up? He said, do whatever you want. I took that stick, I pulled it straight back, and I went straight up in the air. And when I went straight up in the air like that, the feeling was just incredible. And I did just what he did. I came over backwards and back down. And what an experience that was. That lasted an hour. And I'm going to post a photo of that probably at the end of this video. And at the beginning, I'm going to post a photo of when I was working on a 395 walking iron. And I had a lot of photos when I was an iron worker. And unfortunately, my second wife, I don't know, I'm pretty certain she destroyed hundreds of my photos. She never returned them. And because I was in Afghanistan and she was having problems with alcohol and whatever, I had to leave. And I think just out of spite, she either destroyed everything, all my photos. I had hundreds of them, from Mexico and everything. And of course, I was an iron worker. And either that or she's holding on to them, but I don't think she's holding on to them. I think she would have given them to me by now. And the reason she hasn't is because she had destroyed them in some kind of a fit of anger. Anyway, I can't make this too long because I know a lot of you feather merchants, you have short attention spans, and that's not to insult you. But anyway, that's a short story about my days as an iron worker. Right after that flight, 1 week later, I reported to the California Department of Corrections. And one other thing I want to tell you, when I was up in the air flying the Piper Club, just steering it, the reason we found out that Bobby, the guy that owned the plane, he was losing his eyesight is because the last time he took us up, he was talking to control in Las Vegas airport, and he's getting ready for us to land. And I'm still at the controls, and we're approaching the runway, and he's telling me what to do. So I'm doing this. I'm cutting down the speed and everything, and I'm applying the brakes or whatever I had to do. I can't remember, but I was doing all this, and I was starting to get nervous because we were fast approaching that runway, and my wife, who was my ex-wife at the time, she kind of panicked in the back seat. She said, "Bobby," she says, "don't let Jim land this plane." She said, "You got to take over the controls." And Bobby, at this time, he wasn't quite ready to do this because he couldn't see the runway like I could see it, how close we were. And finally, at the last minute, he took the controls, and I'm telling you, we were seconds from touching down, and he landed the Piper Club. And I thought, okay, that's it. I'm done with this. And then the true story came out that he told us that he was losing his eyesight. And, he knew he couldn't fly any longer, and that's why he was taking us up, because he was able to fly his plane. And I certainly sympathized with him, but I didn't want to be part of this anymore. Anyway, I hope you feather merchants enjoyed this story, and I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see you feather merchants on the next video. All right.